Welcome back, Wargamers. As a follow-up to last week's video on how to make a cobblestone road, I'm going to show you how to make a dirt road using some caulk, some different kinds of grit and rocks, and of course a little bit of brown paint all mixed in, which I will then put on a piece of canvas cloth, here a 2 feet by 5 inch piece of cloth to simulate the road. And this will be even easier than the previous video. You can crank out a few feet of these dirt roads very quickly and they'll look pretty good. So first step in making the dirt road is I'm going to mix up the caulk and the grit and the paint place onto my piece of canvas back there. So this is just regular latex caulk acrylic base, so you can paint over top of it. Try and get a non-toxic version because the fumes can be pretty nasty when you're dealing with caulk. And then I'm going to put a little bit of brown paint in there, as well as some sand here, which will be kind of my fine grit that I'll use for the middle of the roadway. So I'll mix that all together, and don't worry if you don't get a very brown color from your paint. It takes a lot of brown paint to turn that white caulk a pretty deep color. I'm going to use this just as kind of a foundation so that when I paint my burnt umber on there, it will go on easier. So now I'm just coating the middle of the roadway with this mixture. Again, I didn't put any really rough rocks or grit in there, so this will be the middle of the roadway. You just want enough texture on there that when you're dry brushing, you'll get a nice variation in color and tone. So that's about it. I will add a little more to the road as needed. I put a pretty fine layer on there, as caulk tends to crack the thicker it gets. Just a little bit of caulk will go a long way. So now I'm going to add some rougher grit to my caulk concoction. Here I'm just going to add some aquarium rocks, and hopefully it will give a little bit more verticality to the road. It will look really nice when we're dry brushing it and adding flock a little bit later, especially since I like to leave a little bit of room in between flock to kind of show some broken ground. So we'll do that on either side of the road, and I'm going to kind of vary how far the road edge cuts into the road itself, just so that it looks more natural. It's not just a completely symmetrical dirt road that we have. It looks like it's somewhere in the countryside that just kind of arose out of necessity. And then I'm going to take a shish kebab skewer and go across the middle of the road to simulate wagon or cart tracks. And then as a final touch, I'm just going to put some mica flakes on either side of the road to simulate kind of larger rocks. Those two will look really nice when we start dry brushing the road here shortly. And after the caulk has been given some time to dry, maybe up to a day, I'm going to go over it first with a layer of burnt umber as a base color. Now, lucky for us, we put a little bit of brown paint into our caulk mixture in the previous step, and that makes our base color really easy to first apply. We don't have to worry about any little specks of white showing out among the textured rocks. So I do advise that you add some brown paint into your initial caulk texture concoction. So I'm just going over the entirety of this road with this brown paint, and I'm going to do a really simple triad. And so here you'll see me adding a little bit of buff titanium to that burnt umber as our initial highlight color. I'm going to load the brush up pretty well and overbrush it over the entirety of the road. So this really isn't dry brushing. You want to have quite a bit of paint on there to cover a good portion of the road, only leaving the really dark color and the deepest cracks and recesses of your terrain there. So after I get this kind of mid-tone color done, I will then go over it with a really light dry brushing of some just pure buff titanium. And a little bit of buff titanium goes a long way, so do make sure you wipe off most of it off your brush onto a paper towel or something. And we will be covering all the road with this, and this is what really has the tops of the rocks and the heavier grit stick out and really pop. And it will look great once we get some flock around it too, to kind of simulate broken ground. Now, what I like to do with all of my kind of flexible terrain is I like to coat the back of it, as I showed in my last video, with just some duct tape. And the duct tape will help the curling issue that often appears when you're using canvas. Alright, it will also give a little bit more rigidity to the roadway to, again, help the caulk from cracking or anything of that nature. So just take a few minutes, line it with some tape, and your road should lie flat with no problem. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some flock and vegetation to the side of our road. So we're just going to take some PVA glue here and add it with a brush, making sure that we allow some of that dry brushed rough terrain to stick out among the flock. We don't want to completely flock the sides of our roads. We spent all that time getting that nice effect dry brushing. So here I'm just going to add static grass. I don't have an applicator, so I'm doing it the old-fashioned way of putting it down, then pressing on it, and then kind of tapping it to make the grass stand on end. And so there we have our first layer, and then I'm going to go over it with a little bit more glue, and I'm going to use kind of a lighter static grass as a highlight. This is, I believe, a spring blend of static grass, and I'm just placing that in areas that I think light will be hitting or that I want to give some extra emphasis to. Adding this highlight layer is completely optional, but I knew I was going to be using this road for pretty much a Northern European grassland mat that I have in mind, so I wanted to give it this extra pop with the kind of light green flock that I'm putting down now. Once I'm finished highlighting my road with the really light colored flock, I'm going to put down some flowers and bushes and different pieces of vegetation. I want this to kind of be a very like a lush, verdant area that this road is running through, so I'm putting a whole different manner of different types of plants. Most are from Army Painter Scenics here, and so it'll cover a good portion. Again, it will allow these really flat canvas roads to kind of stick out with a little bit more verticality to them. And here's the finished product. I think it looks pretty good. It was much quicker than the cobblestone roads that I did last week, and actually I think this turned out better. And here you can see how these canvas mats are incredibly flexible, can conform to whatever terrain you put beneath them. And so if you were looking for flexible modular terrain, I think that this is a nice, quick, easy, and cheap method to obtain that without having to buy something professionally made. So hopefully you were able to take something away from this tutorial, and you'll go out and make some dirt roads of your own. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys for sitting through my videos. And just as a heads up, I'm going to be heading to Italy in the next few days for about 2 weeks. So during that time I won't be able to put out any new videos, but when I come back I will get cracking once again. So I will see you all soon.